into the I80 Club, the newly rebranded I80 Live. Josh Peterson and Jack Mitchell with you. Of all the days, Jack, for us to get together with a special announcement, we ended up picking the absolute perfect day and night. How are...
I am, what a day.
What a
day. There, your mic sounds way better now.
Yep.
Wow. So I'm not even going to get into it, but if you know, you know. It's been a day, and we have been planning this special episode for a long time. And then late this afternoon, everything changed. Everything changed with probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Nebraska sports story of the year happening unexpectedly for us and a whole lot of people, with John Cook retiring. So here's what we are going to do. Most of you have probably already figured it out, okay?
Maybe by the thumbnail.
This was supposed to be a big reveal, like a big take away the sheet off of something, and it didn't quite work that way. So, but nonetheless, we are still very excited to have Josh, a new part of the I80 team.
Yes, we are so pumped to welcome in for the first time, and we will be talking about all the things that they will be doing with us moving forward. It is Jeff Sheldon. It is Lincoln Arneal from Volleyball State, which is now a part of the I80 Club. Boys, of all the nights, of all the gin joints in all of the world, we picked a hell of a one to start this thing off with you. How are you doing this evening?
Well, it seemed like somebody just couldn't let us have the spotlight to themselves tonight, could they?
I think I've been running at full throttle since 5 o'clock. Well, before that, because I went for my afternoon run at like 4:20, 4:30, and I get home and I have 50 text messages.
A couple were from me, I'm sure.
Yes, and there was, and then the full work mode. Trying to catch up, I may have to leave this live thing. I got some calls out to coaches, but so we're here. We're happy to be here. Volleyball State is part of I80 Club. Woo!
We are so excited. We are so excited. We're going to get to the John Cook stuff really quickly here, but yeah, you guys are going to be working with us. You guys are going to still have your if people follow the Volleyball State podcast, you'll still get them the same places you did. You don't have to change anything. We would just advise, make sure and like and subscribe to our YouTube page for I80 Club, because that's where these shows, videos will come from going forward. And we have, we're still working on, guys, I would say we're still working on some options, and some ideas that we've got for future content. And there'll be more out there. And I think Jeff and Lincoln are going to be giving us a little more content and giving you guys who are big fans of theirs a lot more content. And let me just say, for me personally, Jeff and Lincoln, the three of us sat down at the Foundry. Boy, I don't remember when it was, and we talked about this concept.
2.5 years ago, 2 years ago.
Year and a half ago.
Talked about this concept, and I told you guys, I was like, there's a huge market for you guys doing this. And I think you were a little hesitant maybe at that time. And at that time I was like, hey, you should do this. And I'm just excited to be reunited with you guys. That's awesome. Turnabout is fair play, and I'll say that, and that's all I'll say. And it's time to get going with what we've got. So stay tuned.
Lincoln and I are both super fired up to work with Jack and Josh. We have a lot of respect and admiration for what you guys have built with I80 Club over the last couple years. I think a lot of things have happened since that first meeting where we kind of ran the concept by Jack. Lincoln and I knew nothing about podcasting, and now we know slightly more than nothing about podcasting. We watched 92,000 people fill a football stadium to watch volleyball. Lincoln is one of the top volleyball reporters in the state. We've done 53 episodes now. One of them we taped this afternoon, and we thought this was going to be a normal Wednesday. And that
immediately outdated.
Slightly less topical than it was when we finished it. And yeah, we're excited to explore some new kind of ways that we can bring volleyball content to an audience that we know loves it and is looking for more of it, and not just in Nebraska, but around the country as well. We're talking about doing, and we laid all this out at the show that we taped at like 1:30 Wednesday afternoon.
Which will still be available, by the way. And I listened to the entire thing. It's still 90% relevant, I would say.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny at the very end of it, like, as we're wrapping up in our last rotation and we're doing our exit, is when I first got the text message that, hey, something might be happening with John Cook. So I don't know if you, Jeff, and I think Jack was there too. I mean, if you could tell I was slightly distracted, my mind was racing at that point. So it was,
I could tell, because normally Lincoln closes the show in a pretty like standard way and runs through a number of stuff. And I could tell he wasn't doing it. And I was like, is Lincoln just like, he forgot how we normally do this? And I jumped in and just tried to pick it up. And then we got done, like Lincoln apologized. He's like, I just got this weird message. And so that sort of started triggering the reporter lizard brain in me. And I started reaching out to people. And, I reached out to someone who I expected to respond fairly quickly, and they ghosted me. And that was actually my first clue of like, okay, this is weird, right? Yeah. But, we didn't really hear anything. It was about an hour.
We couldn't get confirmation on anything. So, yeah.
And Lincoln went out for a run, and I went to run an errand. And I was actually on a phone call with someone for my real job when I first saw the announcement, and then like Josh texted us and we're like, oh my God, this is happening. How does this affect what we were going to do tonight? And we're like,
wild, man.
Great. Why don't we just come on and talk about, and I tweeted this a little while ago, and I'm not speaking hyperbolically. I fully believe this. Today this is the biggest Nebraska sports story since Tom Osborne retired as football coach.
Dude,
I believe that.
I agree.
Bigger than the Rose Bowl, bigger than any football coaching change or national championship. Like Lincoln and I have been like waiting for this day and sort of preparing for it for years.
And this is the day you join the I-80 Club. Unbelievable. Look at the timing. That's called divine providence, kids. Okay, so by the way, it was wild. Like, these guys wrap up the pod, Josh, and they're like, and Lincoln's like, guys, I just got this weird text.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And I'm on with them, and I'll search Twitter. We'll see if we see anything. Jeff's like, I'll text this guy.
And I check the message boards. There's nothing.
You guys check the message board, and I'm like, I could text Baylor, but they already could text Baylor too. So, and like, I didn't believe it. Like, I was trying to gauge you guys' reaction on how, like,
I didn't think it was real because I'm like,
neither of you thought it was real.
Yeah,
neither of you did.
We figured we would hear something a little bit beforehand, and also the timing didn't make 100% sense to me, although it makes more sense now that I've thought about it. And I imagine, Lincoln, we're going to get into sort of the TikTok of how this happened, because Troy Dan was on Sports Nightly tonight, kind of talking about how it all went down. And to me, just sort of the top line is this is a plan that at least John Cook and Dani Busboom Kelly have had in place for a long time, just kind of waiting to push the go button on it. Mm-hmm. And late last week, John Cook went to Troy Dan and said, all right, man, it's time to push the go button on it.
Yeah, and we'll get to talk to John Cook tomorrow, Thursday morning, about that too. But it sounded like, I want to know why last Thursday he did that. But he went there, told Troy that too. And you see the dots started to connect, because I was at the Love Volleyball match last Friday night, and who is sitting sidelines? Oh, Dani Busboom Kelly, who we talked to one of her players after the match, and she said, "Oh, it's so great to see. It is a surprise trip." So it's a surprise trip back to Nebraska. Now it all makes sense a little bit too. So the dots started to connect. I mean, we talked a lot about in our other show, Jordan Larson retiring. I don't think that played into this whole cycle a little bit too. I think because in that release, it said that after the season is when she approached Cook. I think that more had to do, the timing of that announcement had to do with, they wanted to do that after Love's first weekend in Omaha. So I don't think that's tied too much into Cook's retirement at all. I think it's a separate deal Larson made for her own personal reasons.
Yeah. Well, do we assume that everyone who's tuned in watching this tonight, like, understands all the things that happened in about a half hour time span, which is, John Cook stepping down after 25 years as Nebraska's head coach, that news was let to breathe for about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And then also, Dani Busboom Kelly is the new head coach of Nebraska. About 5 minutes after that, Louisville announces that Dan Meskey, who was a former Nebraska assistant and longtime top assistant at Louisville, was going to get elevated to be the head coach there. So this all moved way too smoothly to not have been, pretty well coordinated. And one of the things that Troy Dannon said was both Cook, like they didn't give their players a heads up. Cook and Busboom Kelly talk to their players, their teams at the same time to let them know so that like nothing would leak out.
Yeah, almost had to be.
From a PR perspective, this was really well executed. I take my hat off to Nebraska for pulling this off.
Yeah, Jeff and Lincoln, let me ask you this. And by the way, if you want to comment, of course, we'll be reading comments from the subscribers throughout tonight's conversation. Patreon.com/I80 Club. That's one way you can do so, and you can join our Discord server. You could send us a super chat as well, and we're happy to read those on YouTube. But I'll read the question to you, Jeff and Lincoln, that I think a lot of people are wondering, and DZ put it the best way for me to read it. How the hell did they get all this done so quietly?
Yeah,
like
man.
It is. I mean, especially Jeff and Lincoln, as you run through today in that half hour and how it's just boom, domino, domino, domino. I think that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be wondering about. Nary a whisper, pretty much, until it goes down.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, it's just a few people who needed to know knew, primarily John Cook and Dani Busboom Kelly. Troy Dannon had kind of been looped in, it seemed like, on the succession plan because he has to sign off on it. And then, it's no secret that when Dani signed her latest contract with Louisville, there was no buyout for Nebraska. And so she's got a good relationship with their athletic director down there and the current AD at Louisville. His name escapes me. But everyone kind of knew the score on this, and all of the conversations that like Lincoln and I would either have with each other or have with other big volleyball fans about like, well, who's the odds-on favorite to replace Cook? Like it would begin with Dani Busboom Kelly always. And you could put together a list after that if for some reason she said no. But Dani was always kind of the first choice for this. And so this plan was pretty flawlessly executed. It seemed like. You look at other situations where a longtime head coach retires just at other programs and in other sports too. Like when, you can have a period of uncertainty. You can have a period where everyone's like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And, there have been schools in the Big Ten Conference who, when a coach leaves, have gone out and made offers to other coaches who said no, that didn't have really a succession plan in place. And maybe they ended up with a good coach anyway, but like the sausage making was not really great. And it's, remains to be seen how Dani's going to do as the Nebraska head coach, but the process to get us here, I thought was really clean.
And one thing I mentioned too, Troy Dannon, which is breaking all sorts of news. I don't know if we knew this, but Dani Busboom Kelly's pregnant and expecting another child this spring. So
I just saw that.
Yes.
I saw it from your tweet, Lincoln.
Yeah.
And moving anytime kind of sucks. Moving like while you're dealing with the stresses of having a child and going through that is, it's a good thing these people make a lot of money and can hire a lot of help.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat. I mean, why Jalen didn't get selected and why we went with Dani? I think just head coach experience. I think Jalen has been a real workhorse for this program. He's been the recruiting machine. But I think what you look at for John Cook's coaching tree is he wants his assistant coaches to go out, take a head coaching job, learn from other programs, learn how they run this program, how they do it on their own. I think that head coaching experience, and plus, I mean, she built Louisville, which was a pretty morbid program when she took it over. It has been to 3 of the last 4 national semifinals. So I think that is that. But I think, I mean, Abby Barmore with the Husker Online has reported that both Jalen and Kelly are sticking around. So that I think, I mean, this does open up the transfer portal for Nebraska, but if those two are sticking around, I think there'll be a lot. I mean, I don't know, a lot fewer, if any, transfers that happen because of that. So we'll have to monitor the portal over the next couple of days too. But with this and Dani being a Nebraska native and a John Cook disciple, or protege, maybe a better word, I think you won't see a mass exodus like you traditionally do when there's a coaching change.
There's a couple of things to this that, I thought of right when this news broke and I knew we were going to go live tonight. The John Cook retiring is one of the biggest stories there is. And I want to make sure that we're able to kind of properly appreciate, John's his legacy, his resume, and we can do that, on another show, and I'm sure we will. We'll call it the John Cook Appreciation Show because his numbers are incredible. But like, it was always going to get wrapped up into, well, who's coming next? Because everyone's always forward looking. So I just want to make sure, we take a second to acknowledge just the crazy success John Cook had at Nebraska over 25 seasons and when he did to that program. Before we start wondering about Dani Busboom Kelly's, coaching style and everything. John Cook won 4 national titles. I think only 2 coaches maybe have won more. Russ Rose did. 14 conference titles, 12 Final Fours, like 87% winning percentage. I think like this is legitimately someone who's on the Mount Rushmore of college volleyball coaches.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. He about every year he had a 50% chance of making the Final Four when he was at Nebraska too. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
All right, there we go, John. We've appreciated you a lot. And now we get to idly speculate about.
He's getting a statue, right? He's getting a statue.
I mean, they're gonna name something after him somewhere at the Devaney Center. You've already got Terry Petitcourt. You've got the
Bob Devaney Center.
There'll be there'll be a statue. There'll be
Is he riding a horse? Statue? Is he riding a horse in that?
I feel like the horse thing is just too new.
Yeah, I agree.
So didn't they include it in the graphic announcing? Or
yes,
was he just wearing the hat?
They did.
Yes. Also in the hour or so I have before the announcement happened, I wrote my pre-write for my story. I said John Cook was riding off the sunset. I mean, it's probably too easy of the visual there.
People forget mid-aughts John Cook. He was a guy too. He was
a
guy too.
When I started covering the Nebraska program, and I mean Lincoln and I covered a season together in like 2003 when we were in, or 2002 when we were in school. But the first season I legitimately covered Nebraska, I think was 2010. And that, like, those 2010, 11, 12 teams, all the way up to 2014, they were in a Final Four drought. People were wondering like whether John Cook had what it took to get this program like back to where they wanted it to be. And what followed starting in 2015 was the most unprecedented run of success that this program ever had. I mean, I covered 4 straight Final Fours my last 4 years covering the program for the Omaha World Herald. And they've been to what, 2 of the last 3, Lincoln, or 3 of the last 4?
3 of the last 4. Yeah.
3 of the last 4. And, they were a point away from playing for the national title a couple months ago. And they played for the national title last year. And I mean, this program is a machine, and I don't think you can hand that off to someone who has not been a head coach before. And so, I think Jalen is going to continue to be a really important part of this program if he chooses to be. He could also go out and get a head coaching job now. Like, maybe this is the time that happens when those jobs open up next November and December. But Jalen can kind of write his ticket, I think, wherever he wants to go. And this is going to be great for Kelly, I think, as a young assistant, to be able to learn from someone who's had the success that Dani Busboom has had. And so, I think this is really the best case scenario for a transition that Nebraska could hope for, because I think people have asked me, like, throwing out names for John Cook's successors, and almost inevitably they always had some kind of Nebraska tie. And I'm always the one who's quick to say someone doesn't have to be a former Husker to come here and have success. What I would do is I would make a list of the 5 best coaches in the country if I were the athletic director, whoever you feel those are, and you go down that list one by one and make them tell you no. And Dani Busboom was always at or near the very top of that list for me. It wasn't like, hey, maybe Jordan Larson's going to take over as Cook's successor. And I always I try to be nice about that, but those people are crazy. Like, she's never coached before. What are you talking about? Like, you don't hand keys to a race car to someone who doesn't even have their driver's license.
Yeah, I think Larson would be a lot more likely if Cook had retired in 2 more years after the Harper Murray class would have graduated, and she has a couple more years of folks just on that. But I mean, she was a wild card, but I think her chances of succeeding Cook were slim. I mean, and also, I mean, he's mentioned this too. I mean, Dani has done one of the greatest turnarounds in any college volleyball program. I mean, Louisville was nothing when she got there, and she built that up. And like we said earlier, they've been to 3 of the last Final Fours too. I mean, she has a resume that any school would die to hire. And I mean, because she's a local girl, grew up in Cortland, Nebraska, just south of Lincoln, played for Nebraska, won national title. Nebraska's a player and an assistant coach too. It's I think any program would be ridiculous not to hire Dani, but I think Nebraska, because of her connections, it worked out.
I mean, there's some people in the chat who feel very strongly that like this came down to Dani Busboom Kelly and Jordan Larson. And like, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't agree with that. Maybe you know more than
no way.
Well, you know,
no way.
Crazier things have happened, but like, I want to be nice about this. If Troy Dannon had signed off on that decision,
no way.
That would have been misguided.
Yeah.
That would have been a poor decision. And so I think Nebraska ended up coming out really, really, really nicely through this. My big question, honestly, is like, people have been speculating about John Cook's retirement for a long time. He's 67? Like, why now? Why was last week the time he went to Troy Dannon and said, why, you know what, it's time to, you know, execute plan X, break the glass, push the button, let's get this going. And, you know, there's a couple of reasons I could think of. One, you know, it's just, he's been coaching here for 25 years. His family has not lived in Lincoln for a couple of years. He's got grandkids and kids who live out of state, and his wife. And so it's like, it's time to go be a full-time family man. And go look.
You know what else might have been a good timing? That new contract John Cook signed last year in the spring, that contract extension. If he was still the Nebraska volleyball coach on December 31st of 2024, he would get $1 million retention bonus on Friday of all things. So I'm not saying that's why he's. Yeah. I mean, he has a nice little golden parachute.
Nice little nest egg. Are you surprised at all, guys? Like the timing of it now? Because I have to imagine a lot of people are like, why not come back and go for the title? Like that it comes after another heartbreaking defeat in the Final Four.
A little bit, but you know, that's one. The other thing I was thinking of is like, we're acting like Cook's decision making is in a vacuum, and that's not true, because you have another party of this, which is Dani Busboom Kelly. And you know, Dani wasn't going to wait around forever for this job, I don't think. Even though she had an out in her contract for it, you know, they have a lot of money at Louisville, and they were taking care of her, and they gave her the resources to build a really great volleyball program. And you never know how long people are going to stick to plans that they made a couple years ago. And, you know, whether it was Cook sensing that this arrangement was tenuous, or Dani actually talked to him and said, hey, are we going to do that thing that we talked about now? How much longer are you looking to coach? There might have been some urgency that have come from that side. Again, I'm just speculating. I don't know. But like, you make that move when you know you can still make it before that option's no longer available to you. Yeah,
I think the timing of it just surprised me because, again, it's late January. I mean, I don't know. Cook is not much one for accolades or being celebrated like that. So I don't think he wanted a farewell tour like some people may want to get some nice rocking chairs or whatever. But so I think that it happened now it's not that surprising. I think even after he signed that new contract, I thought he was on retirement watch for that. And I thought that maybe he'd see the senior class through, but to give them 2 more years with a new coach, new system, that'll be, I mean, that gives them enough time to kind of acclimate and finish their careers how they want to.
Guys, I don't want to spend all the time on this, but I mean, and I know you just touched on it. You touched on it at the beginning, but everyone is talking about the Jordan Larson part of this thing. Like that is that's where I'm getting texts from my friends. I know you touched on it at the very beginning, and I know just now we were talking about the potential of a head coach, but what are your instincts about the timing of what happened over the last whatever it was?
She definitely knew, like she was clued in as to what was going to happen. Yeah. Somebody had a conversation with her. It was probably Cook himself who said, listen, it's time for me to step down. This is who's going to be the next coach. And then Jordan's decision, you know, followed suit. Although if you read the statement that Cook put out about her leaving, it said that she informed him after the season. Now that can do a lot of work. I don't know when after the season.
We're after the season right now.
Honestly, I had heard earlier than last week that Jordan Larson might not be returning to the Nebraska volleyball program from people who I trust who would know. So, I don't think it was hire me as the head coach or I'm leaving, because again, like, she had no head coaching experience and barely any assistant coaching experience.
Yeah, and she's still playing.
We talk about that on the show that we recorded this afternoon too, which I think we're going to try to get up later tonight. But, I don't think this was an ultimatum type thing of like, hire me as the head coach or I'm leaving, because like you're going all in with like a 5-7 offsuit in that case. Like, you do not have the leverage.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, she, again, if she had been around a couple more years, been a full assistant coach, gone through the whole year, whereas, I mean, the last couple of years she's been an assistant coach. I mean, she was at the Olympics and joined the team, the world qualifiers when she first joined, and joined the team late. And she was splitting time towards the November, December of playing for Love up in the morning, then coming and training with Nebraska too. So she was splitting her time. I think, I mean, it's hard to hire someone that's not a full-time assistant. She was splitting her time. So that's a difficult proposition. And Troy Dannon said his first choice was DBK as well too. So
it's just like, I keep trying to be nice about it, but like if somebody actually expected to be named the head coach in waiting after basically being a part-time assistant for a couple of years and never having been a head coach before, then like they have a severe misrepresentation of their own sort of standing in the volleyball coaching community. And I don't think
100%, 100%.
I don't think Jordan is that I don't know, is delusional the right
word?
No,
she knows the pecking order. Come on, right? Like,
I could make a list of 25 candidates.
Just what I was going to say.
Sean Cook, and Jordan Larson is not on that list.
No,
she was on my list. My article I wrote, she was like 5 or 6 of the Nebraska tree, but she was on there. That's a wild card.
Okay. Let me ask this, guys, and because I know a lot of people are wanting to talk about transfers. I did want to get in this question, though, from Dave Fight inside of the I80 Club Discord server. He said, here's my question. Who was Plan B? What do you guys think? Who was the Plan B?
That's a very good question. I don't know that they ever had to get to Plan B.
No. Yeah, I think this is Danny's job until she says no.
Yeah, but Lincoln and I were actually kicking around, like, we were going to do this show. We were going to do this show sometime where we, okay, yada, yada. Danny's obviously the first choice. But
you mentioned it today.
Yeah.
You can listen to it here right after this.
You could go to the top 10 teams in the country, maybe outside of like Jared Elliott at Texas, who makes $1 bazillion. You could have gone to Kelly Sheffield at Wisconsin, and at least he would have taken the phone call. I don't think he would have come. Honestly, my second choice for this job is right up the road in Omaha. Kirsten Bernthal Booth would have been a great coach at this program. She is outstanding, and she's built a wonderful program at Creighton. And I don't just say that because she was nice enough to go on our show. She would have killed it here. She would kill it at any job that she had. There's a number of other coaches who I think would have, this program has the resources. They don't have, and they have a natural recruiting base, which no other sport at Nebraska has. They pour a lot of resources into this program. And so if you're just like a marginally competent coach, you wouldn't fail here. I'm not saying you would, it's easy street to make the Final Four, win the national title. That's not true. But like, you could pick one of the 10 best coaches in the country and like they would succeed here.
Yeah. Here's who I have on my list. So I divided my list into first of people with Husker connections and then non-Husker connection. I mean, DBK was number 1. Number 2 on my Husker connections is Craig Skinner at Kentucky.
Skinner would have been great.
Yeah, he came with Cook when they first kind of started at Nebraska back in 2000. He's built a juggernaut at Kentucky. That might have been a hard pull to get him to leave Kentucky. He's fairly entrenched there. I wrote this last year. I had Tyler Hildebrand and Jalen Reyes kind of up next. Hildebrand's kind of hopped around. He's now head coach at St. Mary's. And if we had done this list 10 years ago, Christy Johnson Lynch. Yeah, but I think she's kind of her star has lost a little bit of the glimmer it had when she kind of built Iowa State into an annual program as well too. So that's kind of the top 5 I have for Husker ties. Non-Husker ties, I agree with you too. Both I had Booth as my top choice. Dan Fisher, who just got a handsome new contract. Matt Ulmer, who just got hired at
Kansas, right?
Yeah, at Kansas as well. Yeah. Then there's a couple other names. Eve Rackham Watt at Tennessee. I think she's very impressive as well. I wrote that when I wrote this last year. I think a lot of Jen Flint Oldenburg at Ohio State, but things have not gone well for her there as far as player recruitment and retention. So I think she's kind of fallen off the list. So
I don't think he would have moved again so soon, but I think Keegan Cook at Minnesota would have been an interesting choice. He left Washington. What was this year his second year at Minnesota? It was just a couple of years ago. He left to come to Minnesota. He's very young. He's younger than us.
Yeah. I'm blanking on whether it's first or second. So I think it's
a second because Taylor Landfair played 1 year with him and didn't like it and then came here.
Yes.
Look at that.
Look at that. Nice pull, Jack.
Good pull. Too many cooks in that kitchen. When have you changed the nameplate on that? Coach Cook.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh no, I think there was if they had let this be an open search, like Troy Dannon's phone would have been blowing up from lots of different coaches in the industry. Those who have agents would have been calling, their agents would have been calling Dannon, but Nebraska just didn't let that happen. Didn't let that speculation happen and just moved right to the candidate that they always wanted.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out before we do some transfer, I think the other great part about this is a female coach taking over one of the premier programs in this too. We saw this
first one, right?
Second one, Katie Schumacher-Cauley at Penn State.
No. First Nebraska.
Pat Sullivan was the first coach. She coached for 1 or 2 years, depending on who you
like
ask.
mid-70s when volleyball
Terry Pettit took over.
Now.
So, but she's the 4th overall coach at Nebraska. Pat Sullivan, Terry Pettit, John Cook, and now Dani. So I think it's I talked to Booth earlier this evening, and she says it's really good. I mean, a lot of the times women get hired, it's in a non-desirable place or a major rebuilding one for women to finally be in position to take over one of the premier programs. It's good for the sport. And you saw this past year, we had our first female Division I NCAA champion. And so it's a great sign to have a woman coaching one of the premier women's programs in any sport of the country. So there's my piece on that.
All right. All right. Now let's do the transfers fully because there's a new portal that opens up, right? When a coach moves.
When a coach leaves, you have 30 days. It opens up regardless of where. I mean, there'll be the transfer portal closed for everyone on January 6th. But if your coach leaves, you have 30 days to enter your name into a portal. Once you're in the portal, there's no deadline to get out, but you're also not guaranteed a scholarship at the school that you can come back, but you're not guaranteed a scholarship if you leave.
Mm-hmm. I would like to think that the way this was handled and communicated that no Nebraska players are looking to leave. However, I didn't think as many of that left last year were going to leave. And so you could have that happen. Apparently Dani Busboom Kelly is calling current Huskers tonight, trying to start building that relationship with them. And we know that this year's, I guess, the class that's going into their junior year, that's the Harper Murray and Andy Jackson class, we're really tight with Cook. And so, it's not like Cook's getting forced out here. It's not like he's leaving under a cloud. I think he had the opportunity probably to talk to the team and say, here's who's coming in to lead this program next. She has my full trust and faith. She's going to be outstanding. Like, please stay and give her a chance. And not every coaching transition happens like that. Now, would I be shocked, I guess, if someone left? No, because transition often brings, uncertainty. But this isn't like someone getting run out of town on a rail after a 500 season, and then all of the sharks circling trying to get their best players. I'm sure, some coaches are picking up the phone and seeing how Andy Jackson and Harper Murray are feeling tonight, and if they're feeling especially vulnerable. But it would really surprise me if either of those players left.
Judging by Instagram, everyone's posting the farewell Cook, hello DBK graphics on their Instagram too. I don't know how much you can read to that, or that's just performative window dressing, but they're doing that. I mean, I think Nebraska, with the House rules that are coming into place, the roster limit is 18 with Ali Check, who they just added, but you assume she's still in the fold too. I mean, I don't know if she was aware of this, but Nebraska has 15, so they can add 3 players. So I don't know if anybody's coming from Louisville or what that situation is. So, I mean, and they just
and
got
Louisville has an easy transition too, because it's not like they're bringing in a brand new coach. Dan Meskey got elevated to be their head coach. So there's a familiarity there too.
Yeah. But you got Husker fans drooling at that Louisville roster. Is there, I mean, are they getting any of them?
Their best players, I think, kind of graduated from last year, right? Like Anna DeBeer graduated.
DeBeer's gone. Elena Scott's gone. They did get Chloe Chicoine from Purdue, just transferred there too. Their starting setter last year was Ellie Glock, a name that all the basketball fans would know, daughter of Jason Glock. But she ran a 6-2 system. So Nebraska also already has.
Nebraska has two really good setters on the roster right now. I doubt they're looking for another one. So yeah, like this isn't maybe last year you're looking if like,
Charity Looper's also graduated.
Charity Looper's graduated. That's the other one I was trying to think of. So I don't think Dani would knife Dan Meskey like that and take his best players and the core of his team. But all is fair in love and recruiting, I guess.
Guys, and we talked about this earlier, the timing of just how fast everything moved, and so it was obvious that they had every single duck in a row. Like, how much does that help in terms of keeping the roster together? That there's we're not going to have any speculation. There's not going to be a second of speculation on who's going to be the next coach.
Well, I think it's definitely better than if you had done it, the way some other programs have had it happen to them, where you go, where the retirement is a bit of a blindside, or the athletic director, you have to go out and search for someone for 2 weeks, and a lot can happen in those 2 weeks. So I think, like I said earlier, the way that this was handled doesn't eliminate the chance of someone leaving Nebraska's roster, but it definitely reduces the chance that somebody's going to leave.
You look at what happened down at Kansas too. I mean, Ray Richard, who's been there for 20 some years, I forget what the exact number is, but he's been a long time. He retired the last couple of days of the year, and then it takes them 2 or 3 weeks before they hire Matt Ulmer.
Had 2 weeks, 20 days, maybe even to hire Matt Ulmer.
20 days. Cause I remember when the window opened for Oregon, Kansas still had 10 days left in their portal entry. So you wonder about that, but I think, this really is buttoned up. I mean, things that no one's going to transfer right now. I mean, Nebraska's already started beach practice. So they're working with Jalen every day. We've already seen pictures of that. The entire team was up at the Love Volleyball match on Friday night. So, so we'll see. We'll see over the next 30 days. But I mean, they won't leave until after the end of the semester, because classes that has started. So there's no point in throwing away a whole academic semester.
I mean, maybe we should talk for a second. We've talked a lot about Cook and the hiring of getting us to Dani Busboom Kelly. Like, we should talk about Dani for a second, just to let all of the listeners know what kind of coach is coming in to lead the Nebraska program. And I assume a lot of folks who are watching follow college volleyball right now. But Dani is one of the top 5, maybe 10, at the outside coaches in the sport. She took a Louisville program that was really struggling when she got there 8 years ago and has built it into a national power. She's 203-44 in her 8 years at Louisville. That's 82% of her matches that she's won. They've gone 120-55, which is like 89% winning percentage just over the last 4 years. So this is someone who knows how to build a winner. And I think I've always been impressed by how they run their offense. And if I've had a complaint about sort of the X's and O's of Nebraska volleyball, it's that, we've joked that they're the Iowa football of volleyball. They are very defense and serving focused, and they don't run kind of the sexiest offense, and they try to let their talent on that side of the ball or of the net win their matches. I think things will look a little bit different sort of schematically with Dani running the show.
Yeah, that was the one thing I really enjoyed watching at the Final Four. I got to set up, I was sitting on the baseline up above the end. So I was sitting in the end line watching the patterns that Louisville ran on offense. Nebraska runs a very basic vanilla. They can get by because they have super athletes and just amazing volleyball players too. But not that Louisville doesn't, but what they are able to do is it's a lot more creative, a lot more variety in what the routes they run, a lot of doubles, some fakes. So I think it's fun too. So I'm excited to see how much of that Dani will bring to Nebraska and kind of infuse what this is. And I mean, if she is keeping Jalen and Kelly, she will have an opportunity to add at least one more assistant coach too. So I think that we'll see. Jeff and I talked about this. We talked about who's going to replace Larson on Cook staff. I think still the same thing. I think they need somebody to work with outside hitters. It would be
and outside hitters is something I'm really interested to watch how Dani handles at Nebraska, because whether it was by choice or by necessity, she had some undersized outside hitters at Louisville the last couple of years. Charity Looper and Anna DeBeer were not like 6'3" bangers. But
and
like
for them, Claire Chaussee is also under 6 foot, so that's why I think what attracted.
What team is she on right now?
She's on Love Madison, so that's why that's one of the players that she was watching on Friday night too was Claire Chaussee.
But those players weren't super huge, but they were really effective. Dani's also run a 6'2" the last couple of years at Louisville. Again, I'm not sure if that's by design or necessity. For those of you who are kind of new to volleyball, a 6'2" is a 2-setter offense. So your setter is always in the back row. Nebraska tries not to run that if they can get away with it. And they have Bergen Riley, who's a really good setter, playing for them right now, although they have a freshman coming in this fall. Help me out with
Campbell Flynn.
Campbell Flynn. I know. I'm sorry, Campbell. I couldn't believe that. It's been a long day. I used to have this noise. But like, in theory, you could try to run a 6'2" with Bergen Riley and Campbell Flynn. But like, I think we're way, way away from knowing what Nebraska's volleyball style is going to look like. I'm just really excited to see what it's going to be.
Yeah. It's still going to be predicated on defense too. I mean, that you look at what Louisville is one of the better blocking teams in the nation. They also had Elena Scott, one of the better liberos. So I still think that emphasis, I mean, Dani does come from the John Cook School of Volleyball too. So serve and block and defense are still going to be the cornerstone of how Nebraska volleyball plays and what they try to do. So I don't think that they're going to go away from that identity very much. So it'll still be familiar.
Hey, Lincoln, you talked about it on the pod that people are going to be able to listen to after this, the recorded pod, but and it hits a little different now that Dani Busboom Kelly is the coach. Nebraska's going to play Pitt to start out the season at Pinnacle Bank Arena. How about that for the beginning of the year? And probably like the team she is most intimately familiar with, like her rival, they are the ACC rivals, and played in the Final Four. Obviously,
can't escape Dan Fisher. I mean, that's been the rivalry of the last couple of years. I mean, Pitt made it to their 4th straight Final Four, and Louisville's been in 3 of those. And I think the one that Louisville missed is because they played Pitt in the regional final. So you can't escape Dan Fisher. Pitt's going to look very different, though, too. They lost Tori Stafford. They lost their setter, Rachel Fairbanks, as well. They do have their middle. Both their middles are back. Yeah, they still got Olivia Babcock, who she can terminate from anywhere. So it's going to be a fun.
She might have 80 swings in that match.
What's that?
I said she might have 80 swings in that match, like she almost did in the Final Four. So Pitt's going to maybe take a little bit of a step back from the juggernaut that they were this year.
I think a step back being might not be a start the season top 5. They'll be a top 10, top 16 team for sure.
You guys, that's a hell of a way for Dani Busboom Kelly to kick off. She should be playing, whatever it is, San Antonio, the Sharks.
They don't do that anymore.
This is Nebraska volleyball.
Nebraska reserves their cupcakes for like week 2 and 3.
That's true, but
they go out and they play like a big time match.
I guess they didn't set the schedule knowing she was going to be the coach.
No. But like, I did find, was it Caleb that tweeted that John Cook will never have coached a match in Pinnacle Bank Arena, which I'm actually like oddly bummed about, because he loved those attendance records and they were going to set one this year. And then they're probably going to play in PBA again against some team in the Big Ten a little bit later on in the fall. But like, that would have been really cool, except, now Dani, what better welcome back to Nebraska is she going to get than playing in front of 14,000 people at Pinnacle Bank Arena in August.
Yeah, and they will have. They mentioned this, that they will have a big welcome party. I think a week from tomorrow, so Thursday the 4th or whatever that is. No,
6th.
The 6th. Thursday the 6th. They are going to have a big welcome for her. So her introduction will have all the
We're gonna have to have a baby shower for her coming up soon. Like we got to buy some cigars for Lane, her husband. Like, does he like cigars? Does he want some beer?
Get the gum cigars. Just do the
Lane,
gum
you wanna
cigars.
do a diaper keg? Like, let us know, man.
But I think you mentioned PBA too. I mean, that's something that she's kind of used to too. I mean, they had a 1,000, a 1,200 seat arena at Louisville, but they would move all their big matches to the Yum Center. And I mean, they got with Nebraska, they had, was it almost 10,000?
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder if she'll do that more because Cook didn't. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if she wants to do that more.
Cook like didn't want to. Devaney.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let me ask a big picture question for you guys, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Jeff, how long, you and Lincoln have been paired up when you first started covering the program. The difference between John Cook at the end of his career versus that first version of John Cook that you got to know, like how was he able, or how did he change and evolve in terms of his style? Obviously, the course of college sports throughout his career took a lot of wild turns, and especially at the very end. I mean, all of the things that have changed in the NCAA. How did he change along with the process?
I forget who I was talking. I was talking to one of the Love volleyball players last week too, and I mean, they didn't mean this as an insult, but they said John Cook got soft, which I think is shows the growth and really the evolution of John Cook. I mean, he used to be what they call in baseball a red ass, and just really would yell at him, be hard, be stern. This is my way. What's that?
That was a baseball term? I didn't know that.
Yep. That's what they used to call it, Darren Erstad.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So I think, I mean, he used to be that very strict kind of and yell at coach or yell at players, and just kind of, I don't know if he yelled, but he'd be very stern with them too. And I think as he evolved and the generation changed, the players evolved, he became soft. He also became a grandpa. Maybe that kind of softened him up a little bit too. But he really, and you saw it like this past year, probably the best way is like he's doing TikTok with his players too.
Yeah, I want to go back in time and explain TikTok to like 2006 John Cook, and tell him that someday he would be like basically in a videotape skit with his players. Like he would have thrown something at me.
Yeah, but I think he evolved with the time, and he became more of an ally to the players too, which is part of the player empowerment era, or whatever you want to call it. And all of sports has changed. So it's really been an evolution. I think he also had, if you read his book, he has a good section about that, about how he was having health problems right about 2010 or 2011, 12. And realized that he needed to change his lifestyle up too. And I think that also played a little bit into his demeanor and attitude change.
John Cook seriously considered retiring. And he said this around 2012, 2013. His daughter, Lauren, played for him at Nebraska. And I think the last year she was on the team was 2012. So it was right before the move to the Devaney Center. And I think there were some real stresses that he was feeling. They were in the middle of that dry spell where they hadn't made the Final Four. And I think he seriously considered stepping away. And he talked with Tom Osborne when T.O. was the athletic director about what a move to the Devaney could be, which Cook resisted famously for a long time. And then I think he changed like when he had to change with the way that young people are. Like you can't just tell them my way or the highway right now. Like they want investment in some decision making. And he saw, he would talk about the impact of cell phones like on generations and how attention spans were shorter. And so he had to change the way that he communicated with people. And so I think it's actually a real testament to the flexibility that people can have as they get older to, like learn some new tricks and learn new ways of doing things, and, became really successful at it.
Yeah. I want to point out this may solve two problems with one hire. Nebraska still hasn't announced their special teams coordinator. Is Lane Kelly, the famous long snapper, is he going to come in and solve Nebraska?
I didn't realize. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
He did was Lane Kelly the one that did that TV segment with Matt Schick when Schick would do like those joke segments?
Grocery carts. I believe that was that.
Yeah.
What year was this? Where are we talking?
Snaps. Oh,
is this the Callahan era? What are we talking about?
Well, Dani would have finished in like 06, I think. She was on the national title team, which was 05. So maybe Dani finished graduated in 05. But she played on that team that won.
He graduated in 06, but he was a senior in 2006.
So yeah, they'd be about the same.
He was
age.
Probably a Solich recruit Callahan kept around.
And I see a couple of comments here in the chat from Virgil, who I think is one of our Volley Talk friends, about NIL in the portal, sort of meaning that coaches can't be such a red ass. I think the transformation of John Cook, honestly, Virgil, came before really NIL. Nebraska was doing, we like to say on the show, Nebraska was doing the transfer portal before the transfer portal was cool. Like they went out and they got Kelsey Robinson and
Maggie Griffin, even if you go back to the
Maggie Griffin, even before that, and then Brianna Holman. Like back when you had to sit out for a year before you could play. So like Nebraska was always kind of on the leading edge of transfers in volleyball.
I think you talked to Kelly Hunter too when she was playing too. I mean, she called him John, which the relationship that they had, I think, was a big impetus for that too. And I think, props to Kelly Hunter, who's now an assistant coach too. I think she her relationship with him opened up some more possibilities for players at Nebraska.
This has been great stuff, guys, and I still can't believe how the timing
of this is so funny. You guys, seriously, as we've talked about it a little bit. Sorry, Jai, I don't mean to interrupt, but you guys started recording the pod that you did earlier at about 1:30. Like, I have it ready to post, and then the news comes.
We probably need to record like a new intro, or one of us needs to come on and be like, "All right, so some stuff's happened since the thing."
By the way, for those who might,
hours today,
I heard the whole thing because I helped them do it, and 90% of it is unaffected by what happened. So yeah, you can. Yeah, you'll still enjoy it. So please listen to their first recorded podcast in the I80 Club. But I did want to talk a little bit, guys, since I know our audience has grown, Josh, pretty significantly. Yeah. I don't know if Lincoln and Jeff can see it, but it's been very, very large tonight.
Yeah, I think we topped out at like 180, which is great.
I kept watching it like it was the screensaver trying to get in the corner, hoping it would hit 200.
By the way, like now that if we're going to do this more on video and people are going to watch it live, they're just going to have to get used to the different backgrounds that Lincoln and I sort of operate in. Lincoln is in what appears to be like a man cave with sports stuff in the background. And I am in our spare bedroom / home office. So like, this is where my kids come and play Hot Wheels racing. This is where my mom stays when she comes to visit. It's not a live, laugh, love sign in the background. I think it says you and me.
I assume it's
a photo collage over this bed in the shape of a heart. That's just pictures of my wife and I. Like this is suburbia run wild here in Volleyball HQ.
Yeah. And I've got obviously the bookshelf. I like to read a ton all the time. Josh doesn't as much, but doesn't have a bookshelf
for reading.
We looked into moving this around. Like we have 2 little kids. There's just no space in our house for like anything else. I'd have to take the computer in the bathroom and just set it up there, which would have its conveniences, but I don't think is what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, guys, Jeff, Lincoln, we're so excited to be partnering with you. And we don't I'll be honest to the people who are watching right now, your fans, people who have been with us, we don't totally know what it's going to look like right now. We are working on it and we think there's going to be an option. Obviously, you just want to listen to Volleyball State as per always. You're going to be able to do that. But I think probably the big thing will be, we'll be able to bring some new things, some more interactive stuff, some more shows, some more things to the table. If you're interested in that from Volleyball State, we're going to get that to you. And Josh and I have been doing that with some of our other stuff. And we can put you in a community of fans too. We've great commenters that you guys brought over. Shout out to everybody on the YouTube chat.
Well, and this is the first time we've ever done really a live show where we've had people chiming in and being part of the show. And that's one of the things that we think is really exciting about this is we want this to be an interactive show. Like we're still going to plan it out and talk about the things that we want to, but we want to take questions from listeners, and we want to use some written content too to get people a little bit more value. So we're really excited to give people the volleyball stuff that they want in ways that they want to receive it. Like there's always going to be free shows too, but we're looking to do a little bit more bonus content too, and we promise we're going to work hard to make it good stuff.
Yeah. And we and Josh and I think a ton of these guys, and wow, guys, and what a time to have you next fall when Nebraska starts with a brand new freaking coach.
Amazing.
At the beginning of the year.
We're going to try to get her on sometime soon. I hope she does it, but sometime in the next couple of months. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in the Busboom Kelly house right now, but if we can get 20 minutes with Dani, like that's
get
great.
her on the club.
Child was born.
Dani Busboom Kelly into club. It's going to happen this summer, I predict.
Hopefully, we might have to get her in the spring before the new
new addition to the household. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I want Cook too. I want Cook back.
I'm gonna text Cook to try and get him on my radio show.
All right. So now we're competing with you. Great.
Well, no, I mean, you're not going to do a show. I want Cook on my radio show next week, so we'll see.
You know, I hear that you had like a airtime opening. Like maybe that's what I thought. Maybe that's what he was leaving to go do.
Maybe he's a listener.
He's doing over you now.
He is a confirmed listener to my show. So
not
to brag. It's just fact. I don't know.
So a couple things to know moving forward, as Jack mentioned, and as Jeff mentioned as well, there will still be the free podcast. That's not going away. We're still working in terms of the moving of everything and RSS feeds and all that stuff behind the scenes. So we will. It'll be a nice little test case later tonight, guys, when we post the pod that you guys recorded earlier. But if you want to hear that, we will also be posting it just to make sure that it is available. Well, in two places. It'll be on the I80 Club podcast feed, which you can find wherever you download podcasts. We will also be posting it right here on this YouTube channel. So you will be able to watch it. You will be able to hear it. Well, after the pod, we'll figure out if we're going to add in a new intro given the news of the day. But that'll go up there. Eventually, everything is going to get migrated. So if you've been subscribing to Volleyball State, wherever you get your pods, stay subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, join them now. And very, very soon, the pods will start populating the feed over there again. And I mean, every meeting that we have, Jeff and Lincoln, you guys mentioned like, yeah, there's just so much news and there's so much news. And Jeff, I thought today after I heard the news, the first thing I thought of was, man, they had that great idea for a pod of like, who would be the hires? Well, we can't
for
even.
Like half a second, I was legitimately mad about it.
Like they legit referenced it during the pod that everyone can listen to.
We'll save that for later. We'll talk about that down the road.
This comes at a very annoying time for me personally today.
I was on the run. I was annoyed. We had a 19-minute gap where we could have recorded that podcast.
Hey, you guys, this fall is going to be wild. It's going to be wild for all of us, and it's going to be fun going through it together. So it'll be great. And we might need to do some joint. We might need to do some joint ones like this and talk about all of the fall sports, right? I know Jeff's got and Lincoln's got some football takes. We'll do that too. You know, we'll see.
We'll see.
Lincoln, come on, man. You can dig.
It'll be a lot of fun. Like this has been great. It's actually a lot. I prepared for this show a lot less than I do our normal shows. Part of which was just out of necessity and put my thoughts together. But yeah, like this is a lot of fun. And then, we think the stuff that we do on Volleyball State weekly is a lot of fun too, but it can be a lot of work.
And real quick, you guys will still do off-season pods, right?
Yes.
Going forward.
Absolutely. Like during the volleyball season, we do weekly shows, like leading up to big things like the Final Four. I think we did 3 shows in a week. We're not going to do that in the college off season. The show that we put out tonight is our first show in like a month. But, last year we did week or monthly off-season shows. We got to give the I80 Club fans probably a little bit more than that so they can see the value in it. And just there's more stuff happening now, something like this. You've got 2 U.S. Pro Leagues. You've got, Team USA has a new coach, which we talk about on the show that we just recorded. And so, like, we can always find more stuff to talk about. There's great guests. There's great, topics. And now we can do things like mailbag shows where Mr. Joe Blow 04 can like put forward questions either in the Discord or the YouTube comments, and we can do a whole show where we just like, chop it up with people.
Yeah. I don't know if we can talk about volleyball 2.5 hours every day like we did today, but
it was a day.
Every other day. It'll be an every other day situation. Yeah.
On the Discord chat, Caleb just posted Caleb, what is that? An Instagram post where Harper Murray says, "I'm not going anywhere," in response to a chat. So, or a comment on a Instagram or I don't know what it is. Screw, I don't know, whatever.
Just say, Jack. Just say social media. Just say social media.
So Harper says
it's a nice catch-all. It covers everything.
Yeah, there it is. All right, Josh, let's wrap it. What do the people need to know? We got a bunch of new people watching us, guys. The only we would say please like and subscribe to YouTube page. That's really the biggest thing, right, Josh?
Yep, like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Turn on the notifications. You can get emails. You can get push notifications on your phone whenever we go live. In terms of free stuff, every week, Jack and Caleb Henry do a Nebraska ball brunch pod on Friday mornings at 11 o'clock. Things have turned a little bit sour lately as Nebraska won't
change
stop
it.
losing.
All changes tomorrow. I'm sitting courtside. It's all changing tomorrow. Watch TV. I'm gonna wear my Brasky ball sweatshirt from the I80 Club. Courtside on TV. Storming the court. All changes tomorrow. Get ready. Get ready for the new era of this season.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Jack does a post-game show with Caleb Henry, Jacob Bigelow, called After Nebraska Ball. The only game that we are not doing the rest of the regular season is Washington. So otherwise, we'll be going on after every game, no matter how many games in a row they lose. And then if you want to hang out with Jack and I a little bit more, normally our Wednesday pods and then our Saturday morning podcasts are behind a paywall, patreon.com/I80 Club. We think that it is very well worth the investment. Hang out with us in our Discord server with all of our other subscribers. We have a great time.
The Discord is very interested in Lincoln and Jeff paying attention.
Yes, they have asked.
Just
like
FYI, they are
tonight.
very.
Will they be joining Discord? Will they be joining Discord?
They are very interested in you guys seeing what they say. We've riled up a bunch of our patrons. So
yeah, so we'll try to bully. We'll try to bully Jeff and Lincoln into joining Discord as well. There, look at that.
Oh, happy to do it.
I haven't logged in yet, but I got the app.
Let's go.
So somebody send a YouTube explainer to Jeff and Lincoln on how Discord works, and then and we'll go from there. But yeah, that's the stuff we do. Mike Schaefer and I do an NFL podcast on Monday mornings.
Mike's in the Discord tonight, by the way. Mike was Mike was watching this whole thing.
Yeah, Mike is texting me screenshots of the Discord. That's how incestuous this whole thing is.
I'm hurt, Chase. I'm hurt.
Oh, that is great. So, yeah, we got a ton of stuff coming, and with the volleyball pod that we are now adding, we are going to have so much more. Jeff, Lincoln, this was tremendous, and again, of all the days to add you, could not have picked a better day, even if it made the last, 4 or 5 hours very, very stressful for all of us.
Yeah, I got to go write about 3 stories later tonight, so good times. Good times.
Yeah, I need a beer after this. I sandwiched this around a little kid's wrestling practice, and it is 9 o'clock. It is ready to clock out for now.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Beer sounds great. Well, Jack, you and I are back together on Saturday morning. You have a post-game show to come tomorrow night right here on this very YouTube channel.
Courtside.
And Volleyball State will, again, come your way on the I80 Club podcast feed and then hopefully soon on their feed again as we get everything figured out there. For Jeff, for Lincoln, for Jack, I'm Josh. Thank you so much for joining us tonight inside of the I80 Club. Bye-bye.